Well, with this virus thing that has hit all of us and we're all stuck inside, I thought I would call a good friend of mine, Mark Gardner from Summer Sky Digital Media down in Marshfield. And Mark and I are Fuji nerds and photo nerds and video nerds. And we like to talk about this stuff. So we actually could be here all day, but
Sure.
his family are home. So
I have all day.
yeah. The audio work has dried up, let's say.
It's dried up a little bit.
So what we decided to talk about is a little bit about things that inspire you, or the things that you can use to inspire you while you're stuck at home as photographers, and maybe some things you could do while you're stuck at home to maybe get your creative juices flowing again without losing your mind.
Yes.
And we also thought that we'd also delve into Fuji World a little bit near the end of this discussion and talk some more about some things we like to talk about, which are Fuji stuff. So, and as you've seen from some of our videos before, that's what we tend to talk about, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
So, Mark, the first thing I'd like to ask you is, do you have any favorite books of photography that you, I don't know, like to every once in a while look at and get some inspiration from?
I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but my favorite is the Cartier-Bresson, just because he's the guy who kind of first pulled me into photography. That whole point, that whole concept of the decisive moment, you know, and capturing that moment in time. And I think one of the things I like about that is it's most of his stuff is fairly just normal stuff. It's just daily life. He's just capturing, he's freezing a moment. So I find myself, especially now, given that we are, under, lock and key kind of, just going around the house and capturing decisive moments. I mean, it doesn't matter where you do it. It doesn't have to be on a grand scale. It can be on a tiny scale. One of the things that I learned as a photojournalist is patience, is seeing a shot that's about to happen, not just being passive and reacting to a shot that's already happening. There's an amazing fire. I get that. There's nothing we can do to predict that. But sometimes you'll be at a situation where you can see something about to happen. You drive past somebody who's wearing bright colors, and that they're going to walk past a clearing and it's going to make a really cool image. So I'd pull up and get out and wait, hope they came by, boom, there's that shot. So that's that moment, capturing that moment. So you can do that with your kids, your pets, really anything you want. And I've caught myself doing that a couple of times. It's like, oh, this will be a great shot in about 2 minutes, when my son finally sits on the couch next to the dog and it's right in the window and the light's going to be really great. Yeah. So I'm just going to sit here and just hold my camera down in my lap very quietly and wait and wait and wait, and boom, and then there's that moment. So, the fact that we're stuck inside doesn't mean we can't keep taking pictures, and that's, in fact, that's the beauty of it, is right now, none of us have anything else to do. So it's a great challenge. I mean, I have moved on to being a sound mixer, but my previous life was as a photographer, and it never leaves you. It's always part of your existence. So, for me right now, because I can't really go and mic up my wife and my kid and my dog and my cat and try out new stuff. It doesn't really work that way. So, but I can pick up a camera and take pictures, and it's been really fun to kind of jump back into that. I've been so busy with my sound work in the last 2 months that I keep neglecting my cameras. So to be honest, this last week has been really fun. I mean, I've been taking lots and lots of photographs, and one of the things I always say to people, I think you and I have said this to everyone, is the best camera you have is the one on you. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or however you look at it, that's usually my iPhone. It's usually my phone. Yeah, right. And it does remarkably well, and I get really great work out of it, and I love it. But once I started picking up my proper Fuji again, and my XT3 or my XH1 or XT30, I found obviously the difference is so stark. When you have real optical glass, and you have a nice big meaty sensor, and you have this beautiful Fuji technology. That picture that you took the week before with the iPhone, and then you took it with the Fuji, it's night and day. I'm sorry,
Oh,
it just
yeah.
is. I mean, people can argue the toss, and Apple always puts out beautiful photography taken by professionals on the iPhone. And I know we've got pictures that we're very proud of that we've taken on iPhones over the years, but it still doesn't compare. It still doesn't. There's something about the color and the dynamics and the
Well, the sensor is about half the size.
It is, right. But there's something about the soul of Fuji images. I mean, I still, we both have friends who are Canon shooters and Nikon shooters, and I see their work, and it's beautiful. There's nothing that, I would never, certainly couldn't criticize it. It's gorgeous, but I can tell Fuji. There's a certain, I don't know what it is. There's a, go back to Cartier-Bresson. There's a certain je ne sais quoi about.
I almost said that.
So anyway,
it's a French thing. Yeah.
That's a French thing. So that would be my first choice. I mean, there are so many amazing photographers that you can, I mean, I think any aspiring photographer who's asked me for advice about how they become better or learn more or whatever, I say two things. One, buy photography books and look at them. Get better by looking at people and all the work that they do. Try and figure out how they do it, especially if it's something that might be technically challenging. And start finding things that you like. Start finding things that you're comfortable with, that excite you. And then number two, go out and do it.
Wow, dude, it's a big deal. So what I thought I would do is I just show a couple. I got three books here that just happen to be sitting by my desk here. Perfect. So this first book is one that was given to me by my cousin, my cousin Pam, and she was a big photographer at one time until her Leica equipment was stolen out of her car, and then she kind of let it go. But she was inspired a little bit by this guy here, Alfred Eisenstadt.
Oh, sure.
And this book here is, you can see how his style changed over time, but it's got some great lines in it. I like to feel the light. That's my favorite. I like to feel the light.
Love that. That's a great line.
And this one here is mentioning that book that you talked about, The Decisive Moment. Yep. I got this book at the same time as I got that one. This one here.
Oh, that's an amazing book. I love that book. Yep.
Now, I looked through this book and some great images in there.
Yeah.
Frank liked to be the fly on the wall, and his images are so snapshotish. If you know what I'm saying. There are some that are amazingly poignant, but they're crooked. You know what I'm saying? They're not lined up quite right. The people are almost out of the frame. Just stuff like that it comes from a guy that was not an accomplished photographer when he started doing this. When he traveled throughout the United States in the late 50s, he was not an accomplished photographer. He got better as he went along. But some of and a lot of them, the people are just staring right at him like, what are you doing? Like, there's a few people on this front one here that are like looking at him, Yeah. And I like the couple that are looking up from him. I'm not going to go looking for it, but there's a couple that just snuck up on him in a park or something and took a picture. And the guy's looking, hey, wait, what are you doing? This other book here, I just got this a couple of years ago. Recognize this guy here? Probably not.
Actually, no.
This is David Douglas Duncan.
Okay.
This book here is The Photo Nomad. It's one of his best works, but
Mm.
he has a book that I have upstairs that my dad got a long time ago. He's a photojournalist from, he's best known really for his work during the Korean War, the retreat from the Chosin Reservoir.
Mm.
He was there.
Mm.
And the pictures of Marines just like frozen, are amazing. But the book that I have upstairs is a book on the 1968 conventions in Chicago and Miami.
Okay.
And I have to say that that book really drove me into being a photojournalist. Pretty amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, those are just three. Now I think this is, if you have some books, go back to them.
Yeah.
During this period of time for inspiration, right, and just for enjoyment.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think this is that, we are very rarely in our lives ever going to have that moment where we have hours and hours and hours to fill time, and it's all very well for you to spend some of it sitting on the couch watching Netflix, and actually there are some very great documentaries too about photographers and photography in general, which none are coming to mind off the top of my head, but I would maybe Kirk can pull down some links or something and put them on the screen at some point so that he can so you
yep,
can check them out, because there are some really fantastic ones. But
that's a great idea. I'm going to I will put links underneath this so that folks can see it. Yeah.
But the great thing is exactly what Kirk said. Just go and take a look back at those books, many of which, let's be honest, they're probably gathering dust. So you can wipe the dust off and take a look at them and really just enjoy that photography and be re-inspired. I mean, these are the moments where we get to slow down a bit. We're not running around, either taking kids to classes or school or going to work and worrying about commutes and stuff like that. So now's the time.
We know somebody that's doing that.
Get those creative juices flowing. So yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that we thought we'd talk about was how you can, as a photographer being stuck at home, how you can get your creative juices flowing besides looking at the books, but actually doing some shooting. Mark, I know you had some ideas as to how to do that. Now, you touched on it a little bit in the previous little discussion here. But one of the ones that I had that I thought you could talk about was self-assignment. Coming up with something for the week or for the day or whatever, some like a shot a day or something like that.
No, I mean, there are so many. And I think because we are both recovering photojournalists and photo editors more so, we are used to that whole concept of assigning. So, I mean, even off the top of my head, I'm thinking you can do just black and white. You could just basically go around the entire day shooting black and white. You could do an entire day shooting, especially in the Fuji world, go through all of those amazing color algorithms that they have. So classic chrome, shoot in Velvia one day, shoot nothing but stevia one day. No, that's sugar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shoot stevia. Shoot black and white. Try the Acros has the R, the G, and the, what is it? Red, green, and yellow, I think it is.
Yeah. Yellow,
so try the 3 different ones. Maybe even set yourself a challenge where you take exactly the same photograph and just use the 3 different ones and see how it looks. See if they are different.
The interesting thing about that is with Fuji cameras, you can bracket those.
That's right. Of course. That's right.
Push the button and it takes 3 shots, all in different types of black and white.
Exactly. So, I mean, that, that's an obvious one, but yes, I mean, you can do themes. You can do, my personal favorite in my house is we have a couple of places where we just have the most beautiful window light. We actually have a couch against two windows, and then there's a little bit of a wall. But it just, there is nothing in the world like window light. It's what we
I know.
chase. We spend our entire lives trying to mimic it with fake light, with studio lights. What are they trying to do? They're trying to mimic window light. They're trying to mimic that beautiful, soft, white light that you get from a window. So, unless you're living underground, there's a pretty good chance you've got a window in your house somewhere. And you probably got a decent sized one. And, if there isn't a chair under it, move a chair under it. And if you have a willing
participant,
then you can have them sit in the chair and have them look out the window or look at you, and you can start practicing natural light stuff. And so you don't have to have a whole studio of lights. You can just use those window lights. And if you want to get maybe a little bit of bounce and you don't have a reflector or anything fancy like that, just find a bit of find a white towel or a white anything, basically, and that'll help you get at least a teeny bit of bounce.
Yeah, which is important with that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So there are so many different challenges. I mean, one of my favorite challenges I had as a student at school was shoot from the hip, and you had to do the entire basically spend an entire week shooting with your camera basically at hip level, and it was crazy. And it's kind of funny because it's like I give a camera to our son Quentin, and he's 6, and he's 3'8" or whatever he is. So when I look at his photographs, they're all from his height, obviously. So they're all from his perspective, and that's essentially, it's about a hip height for us adults. And
pretty funny, actually.
It's pretty amazing what he sees, So give yourself those sorts of challenges. The other challenge I would recommend trying, just for the heck of it, so you can feel like an old school guy, is turn off the back of the camera and don't look at any of your pictures. Just make pictures. Don't look at them. Just make them. And if you have to guess on your exposures, do it. I mean, why not? For one day, just say, I'm not going to take a picture and go, oh, it's overexposed. Oh, it's underexposed. Oh, it's right. Oh, it's there. Just don't do that. Don't do it. Don't look at the result. Just make a photograph, make a series, maybe even do 36. Why not? Really old school. Just do 36.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Just do a roll of film and then put them in the computer and see how you did. Did you overexpose? Did you get it about right? How did you, how were your guesses?
How about this one? Put your camera on manual focus, and by looking at the back of the camera, you can tell how far away it is. Try to guess what the distance is.
Yeah. Instead
of actually looking for the what do you call it? The focus peak. So you'd have to turn the focus peaking off probably. Definitely. And this works for most mirrorless cameras. You can do that. A friend and I used to do this with our Leica cameras back in the day. He had an M6 and I had an M5, and we'd go into a coffee shop and say, see that couple over there? Let's see if we can get a shot of them. And okay, how many feet do you think that is? Yeah. And then we'd set the camera for that, and I'd say, no cheating. You have to set it at f2.8.
Yep.
There's no cheating. You have to set it at f2.8, not f8.
Yeah.
Try to hold it real still. Right. So we had fun doing that. And that's something you can work on at home while you're, doing nothing. So,
exactly. And then, so I would then take it. I mean, there are, again, not infinite, but there are so many different variables that you can do on that inside a house. If you are lucky enough to have a yard, obviously, then you can get outside your house and walk around your yard. And as long as you're keeping your social distance, you can probably even walk around your neighborhood and get pictures of trees and nature and animals or whatever it happens to be. And then for me, the next phase is the phase that typically is reserved for, crusty old professionals or photo editors or photojournalists, the editing side. And, over the 15 years of working in the newspaper business, the one thing I felt like people would come in, freelancers would come in who were very good. They were very capable and competent shooters. They'd have pretty good gear. the one failing, the one thing that they would struggle with the most is the editing process. So, when you would essentially assign them something, which is, what we're hoping that you guys will do too, they'd bring me back 50 pictures. And I say, well, that's too many, obviously. We're not putting 50 pictures in the paper. Even if you're
tried.
Lucky, yeah. Right. Even if you're lucky enough to get a spread, you're looking at 8 to 10. So see if you can figure out, if you go out and spend a day doing stuff, maybe the next day, if you have time, or that night, sit down with your pictures and try and pull out 8. Be very considered about it. I mean, those of us who came from the old school of, film, of, shooting negatives and processing, and then having to basically look at, print out our neg sheet, our contact sheet, and then be very, diligent about saying, well, I'm only going to print 2 or 3, partly because it took too long. It was too time consuming. You can't print all 36 or 24. You only print a couple.
Right.
So, imagine that process as you're going through it. Imagine that idea of, okay, if I've set myself a challenge to take 36 pictures, I'm only gonna print 2 or 3. So look through your section and again, be tougher on yourself. I think we tend to be like, well, I love that one. Well, I love that one, and I love that one. Well, I got to do this one. Well, do you? I don't know that you do. I think when you actually go back and you're really careful about your editing process, you will be able to pull things out. And I think we were having a conversation a few days ago about, in our world, in the photojournalist world, there was a lot of time pressure. So, if you shot, say, a basketball game, you had the pressure to turn around 4 or 5, 6 pictures very quickly. And that night, right after the game, or even at halftime, I'd be going through doing my first, set of pics, and then start shooting again as the game started off. So I would find myself, if I had downtime, the next week, I'd start drifting back and looking at some of those pictures and finding really great pictures that I wish I'd seen when I was sitting in my car in the dark, trying to get pictures out as quickly as I could. And I'd obviously missed them, and that's okay. We do that. We have to do what we have to do to get things done. But once you have a little more time, you can be a bit more considered. So I would actually suggest to a lot of people, as well as going out and making new photographs, go back and look at some of your old ones. Go back and look at, a set of pictures you took a week ago or a month ago or even a year ago, and have another look at them. And I bet you'll find pictures in there that you didn't realize. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't remember taking that picture. And it wasn't even, not only did I not correct it, it wasn't even an initial choice. It was just a picture, but you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And let's put that one out and do something with it, see what it looks like. So, I mean, that's the joy of this. We have, thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures to look at.
Well, Lightroom and Capture One give you a great ability to go back and look at work that you have been neglecting, let's say, and redo them. Or, the other thing is that look at some YouTube videos on how to process things differently than you have been. Maybe doing some learning how to do some focus stacking or exposure blending or anything like that. If you think about it, it's a time that you're not going to get back. If you have the ability to sit by yourself for an hour or two, it's a great opportunity to go back and look at your work, and maybe even be able to look at a YouTube video and try to figure out how to do some new things. So it's great. So anyway, that being said, let's go into Fuji world a little bit. Fuji's been, I forgot. One last thing that you can do is you can look at some of those images, find some stories, and do something that Mark is really good at, and that is producing photo books. These things are great. This book is of his son, Quentin, and who likes to go out on Wednesday and do the trash and visit with the trash guy every Wednesday. So, Mark, you worked on this project for how old is it? How many years is this book?
So that book actually, we did that for 3 years, and we went out almost, not quite every, but almost every Wednesday for 3 years.
Look at that.
And, I know, right? And Q would wait for the trash guys, and I would take my camera out and talk about, actually, this is the perfect example of challenging.
Spring.
Yeah, right. Challenging yourself to new ideas. I would take my camera out and I would put different lenses on it each week. So one week I'd put on the 16.
Oh, really? That's great.
Another week I'd put on the 23, and then I'd put on the zoom lens. I'd put on my 55.
I love this one right over here. Well, we're wrong over here. This one here.
With the feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
I can tell whose feet those are.
Can I just say that one actually was inspired by by Quentin's cousin, who is 11. Her name is, she's 13. She was 11 when she inspired me, Matilda. And I actually lent her one of my Fuji cameras for Thanksgiving. Yeah. And she went out and took a whole slew of wonderful photographs, which incidentally I made a book of and sent to her.
Oh, really?
But she took this absolutely gorgeous photograph of her feet and Quentin's feet and her brother's feet on a puddle that had iced over.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely beautiful in black and white. It had this amazing crispness. The personality of the shoes just shone through, because they all three had these very specific kinds of shoes.
Oh, really? Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it was very cool. So, and it actually, taught me, hey, don't just look up. Sometimes look down, change your perspective. And it's amazing the things that you can find, the textures, because sometimes it's just about textures, finding really cool textures and contrasts and light. So anyway, she inspired me to take that photograph. But yes, the Trash Day book, it ran for 3 years. And what we did was, because I had, obviously every week I had 7 or 8 pictures. It was an assignment. I assigned myself to capture that moment, which lasted about 15 minutes, 2 trash trucks going up the hill, coming down the hill, picking up the trash, queue waiting and all that stuff. And as you saw, different seasons, which was so cool. So you got that sense of changing of the year.
Right.
So then I decided to make it into a book for us, but then we kind of went a little bit further in that situation, and we made books for charity. So we actually had people donate $25, $50 to the charity of their choice, and then I would make a book and send it to them. So I think over the 3 years that we did it, we raised like $5,000, which is kind of cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
For charities all over the world. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, making photo books is the most fun, because one of the things that I think we're all as humans, we're sort of coming back to them. We circle back to these lovely trends, but for the longest time, all these amazing images, these new images we were taking, never went past our phone or our iPad. We'd make a beautiful picture on our Fuji, put it in the computer, and then send it to somebody, and then that would be that. So to see these things in print is really lovely. And again, a lot of people are used to that, but a lot of people aren't. So actually seeing this stuff back in print is really fun. And it's I don't know, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever.
I had a show back in 2017, which was all black and white. So what I decided to do was make this right here. Oh, there's Quint right there.
There he is.
What I did was I decided, and I haven't done number 2 yet, but this is volume 1, the little black and white book. These books are very inexpensive.
Right.
But as you can see, I don't have any explanations or anything. I just have pictures.
Yeah. No, it's great.
For me, it was a great opportunity to just go through and look at my work and try to figure out what would make a good image. You know, like I
Yeah.
love this. I love this
I
shot
love
right
that.
here.
It's beautiful. I think it's so nice to do this, and you can make little gifts for people,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
which I think is nice. I think at this point in time, it's a great idea to be able to put some of your most fun pictures together and send it to somebody as a treat. I mean, you know, it gives somebody some business, and it'll make somebody smile. You know.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
So that's really it for our inspiration for being at home alone,
yeah,
not being home alone, but being stuck at home.
back at
Uh,
home.
the last thing we wanted to talk about was our favorite subject, and that is Fuji.
That's right.
Getting all these messages on my screen
Oh,
about what my default
oh,
microphone is and everything. It doesn't really matter.
no.
It'll just show up in the recording, which would be kind of bizarre.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, Fuji's come out with some great new cameras. They've got the X-T4, the X100V, and
The X Pro 3.
oh, the X Pro 3. Excuse me, I forgot that.
Yeah.
I honestly, the X Pro 3, it was the first one they came out with, and I was a little stumped at that. I didn't understand the screen on the back, but really they're going back to trying it to be like a film camera where you can't see what you got.
Yeah, like an old school
You have to
rangefinder camera.
right. You have to pull the thing down and look at it, and it's got an old school rangefinder. It's actually an electronic rangefinder,
Yes.
but
Right,
but
right,
it takes on the same feel of
exactly.
using a rangefinder camera.
Right.
And a lot of people that have got it like it, really like the whole concept of it.
Oh
But
yeah.
you have to be an ex-pro person to really like it.
Yeah, it's just a different mindset. I mean, it's a very different way of making photography. As you said, it's much more old school. It's much
Yeah.
more sort of a film tradition. You know, the way, whoops, I should not bang my microphone. The way the eyepiece is set right to the side of the camera, so the actual functionality of the camera is such that they want you to use it that way. So you're using your other eye, you know,
Right,
as your eye,
exactly.
all that kind of stuff. And,
Right.
and I get it, and I think it's lovely. I mean, I think I know that, you know, some people had issues with the fact that the screen didn't move and didn't go up and down and around and sideways and all that kind of stuff. But I think I do think, you know, in this case, I applaud Fuji for sticking to their guns and just saying, hey, this is just a different kind of camera. You know,
Sure.
we made this very specifically for a purpose. And if you don't, you know, if that is not what you're looking for, if you're looking for something that helps you make pictures, you know, on low angles and high angles and whatnot, go for the X-T2, 3, 4.
Right.
You know, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I was never great. I mean, I think the look of the photographs is gorgeous. I've never actually owned an X Pro anything. It's the one model I never actually ended up buying, but very specifically because they said, you know, the way they, you know, set it up, it's like, yeah, that's just not something I would use. It's not really for sports. It's not really for, you know, day-to-day photography. It's more for you know, a very sort of exclusive setup of you know, film and being careful and street photography, that kind of stuff. Just
Right.
is not my, you know, just not my bailiwick. So, but nonetheless, a tremendous camera. But yeah, I as I've kind of moved into a different profession, professionally, I guess, you know, doing the sound thing, my cameras have been more of a, you know, there for my hobby stuff. And I kind
Yep.
of missed, interestingly, the X-T4, X Pro 3, X100V rollout. I was aware of them coming out, and I just haven't had time to kind of really swing back and capture that. And I'm hoping you can tell us a bit more about the, you know, some of the stuff they have that's different and better or the same or whatever. One of the things I, you know, we'll talk about after that is how, for those of us who either can't afford to jump on that bandwagon because of current circumstances, or just don't want to at this point, or to be honest, for those people who are not in the Fuji family yet and are maybe curious about it, there are some crazy bargains right now.
Oh yeah.
On XT3s and certainly on XH1s, which Kirk has one of my XH1s that he's been trying out to do a little demo on, because I really think people are going to be very surprised, what a great little camera that is, and how. I mean, I picked one up maybe a month ago just to run and take some pictures quickly. And I'd forgotten how lovely it is. I'd forgotten how wonderful that shutter on the XH1 is. That beautiful, soft, quiet shutter is just so gorgeous. It's like velvet.
Come on, work.
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh.
It must be because there's no lens on it.
Probably. Anyway, it's so beautiful. It's so soft. And yet it makes beautiful photographs. And when it was first released, it was, they were basically kind of selling it as a video / photography hybrid, but the emphasis was on video just because it has IBIS in it, and the fact that you could, suddenly run with this thing handheld. And trust me, I did. And I put it through its paces on a lot of video shoots, and it was really fantastic. I mean, it's not at the level of a movie, but it's still very impressive.
Right.
And so I feel like this is the time where, very new technology is out and very impressive. And I would, if you have the money and the wherewithal to go out and, drop money on an XT4, then, fantastic. But if you don't, then I think Kirk and I were talking about this. It was bargain season earlier, the Fuji discount season, which I think is now ended, but there's a pretty good chance that's coming back. I would imagine sooner rather than later, because, again, I'm sure they want to try and.
They're going to need the money.
Products, yeah. But those XH1s were going for under $1,000, and that
like this
is
with the grip.
With a grip. I mean, that's an amazingly good deal. So,
it is a great deal. Under $1,000 for that.
Yeah.
The next camera was the X100V.
Yeah.
And that is a good upgrade from the X100F. I'm not really an expert on it, but from reading, apparently the lens is much better. The autofocus is much faster.
Okay.
And it's,
come on in. You can come in.
Someone did said that the top of it, he dropped it and it left a nice dent.
Okay.
But it didn't wreck it.
Wow.
So apparently it's maybe a little beefier, but it's a great upgrade from the X100F. It's still, I think it's kind of a pricey camera, to be honest with you, but it's got a lot wrapped up into it. What is it, $1,400 or something?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember which version of that I still own. I think it's the S.
S, yeah.
Is there an S? I think there was an S, right?
Yeah.
So I own the S, which I loved. I really loved it. It was a great camera. I did find the autofocus a little slow, a little laggy, and searching a little bit too much. But I love the lens on it. Here's the thing, and I think I go through this every time they release one of these 100 series cameras. It's not small enough to be
point and shoot
a game changer for me, because I have the XT30, which is a fantastic little camera, which is about the same size, if not smaller, and I can put different lenses on it.
Right.
And that's the one thing that for me was a bit of a game changer, is that I like having a fixed lens. I love that challenge. When the very, very first Fuji I got was the X100. I don't think it had a number. I think it was just the X100. Maybe it was the S, and then it became, did it go from the S
to F?
Well, there was
T was first.
T was first. Okay. So
I think.
Yeah, I forget. So anyway, sorry, Fuji, rabid Fuji fans. I apologize for not.
Yeah, both of us.
I had one of the older models, and I bought it very specifically. I had Canon gear. I had the Mark III 5D Mark.
Wasn't that the first thing you bought?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So a friend of mine had sent me a recommendation, and like a write up of I think it was the S, the 100S, and I was like, wow, this actually sounds intriguing. It was a little pricey, but I thought, okay, that's all right. I'll go for it because it was over $1,000. But they're like, this is not like any point and shoot camera you've ever used. And they were right. I mean, it was beautiful. It was definitely still slow. And it was my one frustration was the autofocus was very slow. But it was a phenomenal. I mean, funnily enough, I just stumbled upon some images a couple of days ago. I was looking for something else and I found some pictures. Oh my gosh, they look good. I mean, really just gorgeous, rich colors, beautiful blacks, just incredible. So I loved it. I just got to the point where I had enough Fuji lenses that I wanted choice. You're right,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that I could take my little XT30, which is a nice small camera, and I could put a 16 on it, or which is just a phenomenal lens, or I could put a smaller 23 on it or something, and I could just go out and shoot and basically get the same effect. But if I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, I really want to put a 55 to 140 on it, I could take that off, and suddenly I have more ability to do something else. Now, I do also think one of the joys of those little cameras is the fact that you're kind of stuck with what you've got. And
right.
so you have to think on your feet or move.
Right.
You have to actually move.
Oh, the foot zoom.
Yeah. If you want to get closer, you got to move. So there are so many things I did love about that it was a challenge. It's like, if you're a golfer, it's like going out with 3 clubs instead of the 14, right? Can you do it? Sure you can. Is it a challenge? Oh yeah. Try hitting a drive with a 5-iron, or try getting out of a bunker with a 7-iron. I mean, it's difficult, but it's also kind of a fun challenge to try that.
I thought you were going to say, try to get out of the bunker with a driver.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think Seve Ballesteros could do that. And he could do some crazy stuff, but that might be pushing it. So I think the 100 series is beautiful, and I would never steer people away from it, because I do think it's a very particular camera for a very particular purpose, and it is amazing and remarkable. I just think, I personally started having that challenge of like, well, when the 100F came out, the write-up on it was really good, and I'm like, this is a really beautiful camera, and they've really done some amazing work on bringing it forward. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want one of those. But then I just kept looking at my drawer full of bodies and thinking, why would I get that when I have XT3s and XH1s and all that stuff? Hello, it's my son Q.
Hey Q.
7, 8, 9. Oh, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nice.
7, 8. What number is it?
7, 8. What's the number? 789,456. I'm not sure that there's any great relevance to that, but he's getting.
That's how much money you just made.
That's how much money I just lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last thing was that the XT4.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, kind of curious why they wouldn't put a flippy screen on the XT30, but they want to put it on the XT4. Apparently,
so is that the flip? It flips all the way.
It flips around
backwards. Oh, yeah, okay, so you can do the
selfie mode,
yourself thing. Okay,
yeah. Which is great for video if you need it for that.
Yes,
but apparently the autofocus is much improved. A lot of things are much improved on it.
Yeah,
and
tell me about the battery. Thank you.
The battery is much larger.
It is. Okay.
And the IBIS and the battery size have added to the weight and the size. But apparently it's not that bad. It's not that it's huge.
Okay.
It's not as big as the XH1 still.
Okay.
And it's and the battery is much improved. So there are some good things, and of course the IBIS that's in it is also good news. But I don't know. It hasn't forced me to go buy it.
No, I mean my thing is I'm a big stickler for compatibility, and I like the fact that all the batteries I have go in all the cameras I have. So the
Right.
XH1, the XT3, the XT30s,
They're all the same.
I
Yeah.
can just, if I'm running out of the house, I can just grab 3 batteries and I know that they'll fit in whichever camera I happen to have in my hand at the time. You start doing new batteries for me and it starts getting, Canon went down that road where the big cameras had huge
Yeah.
batteries and the
Yeah.
slightly smaller models had slightly different batteries, and that meant
They were all the same,
Right.
the smaller ones, but
yeah, suddenly
not
you're
the
looking
big
at-
ones.
Right. Now you're looking at different chargers. So you got to have a different charger. So that's 2 chargers instead of 1 charger. And my life, for me, it's all about simplifying things. It's all about making sure I have less chargers, less kinds of batteries, less kinds of everything, because I don't have time to worry about that stuff. That being said, it's not a game changer. I mean, if the XT4 is as good as people say it is, then, okay, that's great. I mean, once again, for me, looking at, where we are as a, where the economy is and the fact that we're all going to be probably penny pinching for at least the next 12 months. I mean, it's going to be a rough ride, realistically. If you're in the market for a new camera, boy, I'll tell you, that XH1 is pretty impressive. I mean, if you're already in the Fuji family and you already have lenses and batteries, well, you don't have to buy new batteries. You don't have to buy a new charger. You already have all that stuff ready to go.
Yeah, that's right.
In the XH1, you have a camera which has IBIS. It has a fantastic video range. It's not quite, I'm sure, I don't know the exact stats of the XT4. I don't know, that it can, I'm sure it can't compete with the XT4. Obviously, the XT4 has a new sensor as well, or a better sensor than the XH1. That being said, I've shot the XH1 for stuff that's gone on network TV, and it looked great.
Right.
So, it's not that it's not that you can't use it. You can, just have to know how to use it and how to light it well and how to process it and post and all that kind of stuff. But so again, if you're new to the Fuji world and you're lured in by these new models, but maybe you can't afford $1,800 yet, look at the XH1 as a bargain. If you're already in the world, in the Fuji world, and you already have that stuff, then okay, I totally get it. I mean, I just think it's amazing now when you look at the stable of gear that they have, from the XT3, the XH1, the X Pro series, the 100 series, the XT series. I mean, the XT30 is a phenomenal little camera. And I forget how much that cost me, but it wasn't a lot.
$799.
There we go. That's a crazy price. It has essentially the same guts that the XT3 has.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it has a couple of things missing on it, but not a lot. Not a lot. It's just a pared down version of it. So
I really enjoy that camera. I have the 23 on it.
Yep.
And well, not the 23-1.4, the 23 f2.
Yes, right.
And I guess you'd say it's like having an X100V, right?
Yes.
But it's got more stuff on it.
Well, it's got more stuff on it, and if you
can use another lens on it.
A different lens on it, you can. I'm sorry, I don't want to steer people away from the 100 series because it's a
great series, yeah.
And that's what sucked me into Fuji in the first place. The algorithms on those 100s are just gorgeous. Friday, we're going to paint the barn on Friday, just in case, Kirk, you want to come down.
Unfortunately, I have to be socially responsible and stay away from people.
Well, you could be 6 feet away from us and paint the barn.
I'll let my wife know that. Hey, Janet, I'm gonna get on and paint Mark's barn with him.
Anyway, there we go.
So anyway, that I think that kind of wraps up our discussion. Yeah. I hope to do this again with you.
I'd love to.
We'll have to think of something to talk about.
Well, you know what we should do? I think what we should do is set ourselves some assignments.
Yeah.
And actually bring some of the results back and show people what we've done.
No, we'll have to talk about that and
maybe we could challenge people to go do stuff. I mean, I'm hoping, if people do see this, it's nice that, people have time to watch all these things now, but hey, watch this now, get off your couch or, get away from your desk, grab your camera and, we should challenge people to do stuff. I mean,
how about a pretty easy one? Window light.
Window light. I like it. So next week when we get together, we'll do, I'm going to pull together 3 different looks using window light.
Okay, great.
All right.
I'll try and do the same thing. I wonder if my dog will pose for me.
I know, right?
I know my wife won't.
All right.
All right, great. All right, so that wraps it up, and we'll. This is probably going to go up on Sunday, I believe, and so we're going to try and maybe get together next Wednesday and talk about something different. Look at some results from our challenge, our own challenge, and hopefully you folks will follow along and do the same thing. So that's it from here. Mark Gardner from Summer Sky Digital Media and Kirk Williamson from Cape Ann Photo Tours. I'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.